What's up, everybody in there? What's up, friends? How's it going? Welcome to the video. This is the part 3 of the video, a time lapse, a drawing I've done on 30 by 40 paper in my teeny tiny, what is this, like 15 by 10 foot bunker, and it's called This Is My Fly, part 3. I kind of struggled with this one, and for a good while I didn't really like it very much. I was like, what the hell? What's going on with this drawing? Because sometimes I don't really have a plan, as you guys may or may not have gathered. Plans can be boring. I'm kind of like unhappy at the end when I like execute a plan. I'm not very satisfied with plan execution. And so I don't have one, and end up being happier when at the end of a drawing when I'm kind of like, damn, that's magic, just came out of my hand, pen, brain, chain system that has been operating basically through many environmental changes, but on the same running the same operating system for about 20 years now. Over my years as a comic artist and illustrator, storyboards, that thing, all that good stuff. So I came to this drawing with a few just words in mind, and I knew I wanted there to be some girls, some women, some robots, some flies. And the title, This Is My Fly, came from a funny interaction I had at my old studio in the fashion district in downtown Los Angeles. It was on the second floor on the corner of 9th and Maple in the heart of the fashion district, and I would be able to draw all day and look down on the busy, bustling markets and people shopping, buying clothes, boom boxes, jewelry, incense, tasers, shoes, knockoff tees, all that good stuff. And it would get really hot in there. It was in this old like textile building, and in the middle of my room, my studio, on these hot days, I would get just like a group of flies that would kind of fly around each other in the middle of my studio. Like I would be drawing, my desk is against the wall, and I would be drawing all day, and then the flies would just kind of like zigzag around. I wonder why flies do that. There's got to be some kind of scientific reason why a group of flies will just kind of like do-si-do and dance around each other, sort of like UFOs turning at odd angles at different intervals, and they just kind of like orbit like little electrons. So I got used to them, didn't bother me very much, and then one day my buddy Grant LaValle came to visit me, and he was like, hey man, nice flies. And I said, yes, these are my flies. Kind of like Dracula would say, like Dracula would keep, rats or lizards or bugs or flies. Or maybe that's not true. That would be Renfield I'm thinking of. So Renfield was Dracula's little butler fella, and Renfield was more like kept, hypnotically captive by Dracula, and he was his servant. He would go like dig up corpses and go like dispose of bodies, mostly disposing of the Dracula bodies is what I think Renfield was involved in, and Dracula would repay him by feeding him rats and lizards and flies. Flies have come up in my drawings before, so I thought I'd give a nod to a moment in time where I said something funny. So I started drawing the face back earlier on. You're probably looking at it right now, and of the bigger face in the upper left corner, the drawing of this woman, this astronaut, maybe a bit of a cyborg astronaut character who's kind of coming apart off the back, and it ends up kind of looking like a satellite system coming apart. Probably influence got in my brain a little bit through that movie with Sandra Bullock, where she's in trouble orbiting the planet. I forget the name of that movie. That was cool though, and a lot of good fracturing, fragmenting space parts. But a lot of films have that, and I think there's a satisfaction for me in drawing exploded or semi-exploded bodies and technologies, space stuff. And so her spacesuit kind of became this organism all its own, and it has these sort of interior spaces of dark cables that I find very satisfying to draw, because they kind of push things inside, and then you can sort of have let just white shapes or panels with a center line or like a line kind of hold together this form. And then as the drawing continued, there I knew I was going to have this fly, or at least one or two flies. So this fly ends up being kind of in the center of the drawing, and she's kind of sitting in a lotus position, petting the fly, kind of giving as if it's like a cat, like I imagine like this is my pet fly kind of sentiment that I was trying to evoke through I was holding on to some kind of like a cuteness around flies, like careful, like when a cat sits on your lap and it's like nuzzling your hand, and then it nuzzles your chin or face. It's very cozy and comforting. And imagine we were doing that with giant flies. That's just how we would do it. If a fly was your pet and you were loving it and you were feeding it and you were taking it on walks or maybe flights around the block, depending on how we would do that. I imagine maybe you would have your fly on a leash, and those leashes would just sort of buzz and spaz out around the neighborhood, and we'd have to be keeping in mind, mindful. We would have to be mindful of the leashes getting tangled in the sky. Like when chihuahuas fight on the street on my sidewalk, their leashes get all tangled up. So we got to be careful of that when we have our pet flies. As the drawing progressed, like I said at the beginning, I was kind of like, ugh, this drawing is terrible, which usually happens one or two times during the course of making a drawing. I just want to burn it, and I'm sure a lot of you artists out there feel the same way. It's a common feeling. It's best to avoid acting on that feeling, and just at that point it's probably time for a walk or time to have lunch or get a cup of tea or something like that. So when I was having this feeling, I was that's kind of a signal that it's time to resolve things, like think about composition, think about what's coming next before drawing, before messing it up even more. So I sat back and I decided to create this border around the edge, sort of broken up into sort of a big 2/3 and a little 1/3. It could also be closer to like 3/4, 1/4, just to break up the whole frame of the piece, the borders in its entirety. And that way I can create that play of things coming out of different frames, or getting cut off, but other things breaking the rules and being able to cross over depending on what it is, what it looks good, essentially. So I used this old technique. It's not that old, but I did it when I was a scenic painter, where you use a ruler and a brush. I love this technique. You have these straight lines. It looks like tape. So I became a bit more happy with the drawing after that, and kept cracking on it. Drew this zombie wolf type situation, and the sort of right next to the fly, where its hindquarters are kind of rotting and there's machines happening inside. So it's a bit of a zombie cyborg wolf. Then just below that, there's an astronaut taking notes, and there's something that's very funny that I find humorous about when there's a lot of chaos going on, when there's just a lot of stream of consciousness elements, like naked woman whose hair is coming off and her spacesuit is collapsing next to robot astronaut connected to the backside of a fly with like a larval technology pod at the bottom, all these different things. When amidst all of these elements are occurring, I find it nice to put someone like taking notes or filming it or having or like doing a drawing of a inside the drawing, as if there's some way to organize or codify or list or create some kind of data sequence around this stream of nonsense. Is it possible? Maybe. It's a hard thing to say, like that data sequence that little astronaut is drawing inside my drawing is the explanation of the drawing. Like there's not really one explanation. There's many and there's none all at the same time. And the meaning doesn't come from any one perspective. Then down to the bottom right, next to the astronaut taking notes, is just another space woman on a little tank buggy, as if she's waiting. She's like chilling out. She's leaning on the handlebars, and that's another sort of counterpoint to the chaos. If I can ever create that, like, it's exhausting to look at something that's really busy all the time. And not that this is super busy, but it's on like the busy side of the spectrum. Um, so there's negative space that can help the eye rest, but then there's also the affect of like a figure's behavior, like resting. Like if there's like space station coming apart, a giant astronaut cyborg woman petting a fly, with smaller astronauts grappling and playing like shoulder wars with each other, there becomes a sort of like normality to it all when there's a figure at rest, someone who's just like looks bored amidst all of it. It's almost like the boredness makes me feel like familiar at home. So I always like to have someone either like recording or bored, or like having a cup of coffee in the middle of a maelstrom. It's very comforting in a way. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna try and make more videos. I really enjoy it, and I appreciate all your comments. Always like those. Cool, y'all. Be safe. Much love. Bye bye.